with the book's author, Derek Winterbottom. It's called Sophia Morrison, Mona Douglas and Their Enchanted Isle. Derek, not the first book you've written about the Isle of Man. You're not a native. What is it that draws you to write so much about the island?
Well, I think I am a native. I've lived here for 25 years.
Oh,
I think that makes me a native.
That qualifies you.
It's, I think, the 10th book I've written about the Isle of Man. Why did I write about these ladies? Well, because A, they're ladies, and all the people I've written about so far are men. Several biographies of men, but why not women, especially as I really do think that Mona Douglas is the most important, most influential Manx woman of the 20th century. And this is what I try to make clear in the book.
More so than Sophia Morrison?
Yes.
Why?
Well, because Sophia started the ball rolling, if you like. She followed on from T. Brown, who was a hero of hers. She wanted to continue the kind of Manx cultural nationalism which he started, and also to preserve the language and also to preserve dialect. And to a great extent, she did that. But she only had a short working life. Really, she didn't become prominent until 1900. She died very sadly of intestinal cancer. How rotten was that? At the age of 57. So she only had 17 working years. She did a lot. But Mona lived for 89 years. She started writing poetry when she was around 10. And all during that period, she did a fantastic amount for the Isle of Man, which I really couldn't describe in less than 20 minutes.
And as ever with your books, Derek, there's so much research that's gone into this. How long did you spend in the Manx Museum Library?
Everybody tells me that, as though one is kind of chained to it and has brought bowls of gruel. It's not that bad, but I was there for about 4 or 5 months over the summer, but I wasn't there every day, and I don't regard any of this as a chore at all. I wouldn't do it if I didn't find it truly fascinating, and I write these books because I thoroughly enjoy writing them and talking about them afterwards.
And so obviously the book is about both women. It's about Mona Douglas and Sophia Morrison. You just mentioned the sort of time period that Sophia was active. What was the time period with Mona, and would they have ever actually met and known each other?
Well, they did. As I've just mentioned, Sophia really was only operating for 17 years. She was born in 1859. Mona was born in 1898, which makes Sophia 40 years older, and you should always remember that. According to Mona, Sophia encouraged her to start collecting Manx folk stories, and when she was about 9 or 10. And Mona won a Douglas Prize for a poem when she was about 10, and a significant international Bookman Literary Prize with a poem called Fairies in 1912. She's only 14, remember, at this time. The next year, Sophia started a journal called Mannin and asked if she could include a poem by Mona called Longing and another one called Billy the Dolan. This is around 1914-15, and articles on folklore. By then, Mona had a first book of poems published in the UK, Manx Song and Maiden Song. Again, she's only 17. And then in 1916, Sophia and Cushag invited Mona to stay in Douglas and watch Cushag's new plays. Sophia died in January 1917, and then Mona stepped into her shoes almost completely at the age of 19. She took over the editorship of this journal, Mannin, and also became, in Sophia's place, secretary of the Manx Society, and she was only 19. But, by that time she'd done so much and been a published author. May I just read, I think, a beautiful poem, which Mona wrote in tribute to Sophia in the last edition of Mannin. It's called, in Manx Gaelic, Ar Suil, which means away or gone or out of touch. We walked among the mists in eager quest of fairy lore, and talked with eyes aglow of all the strange, invisible things that go about that sea-girt land we love the best. And ever the grey mist whirled and took no rest. The waves came sliding inward soft and slow, and wheeling gulls troubled dim sands below, and cold wet winds came blowing from the west. Now you have passed out from these shadowed lands, by unknown ways, to seek the light of lights. Still the pale winds whirl mist across the sea, and white gulls cry, and rain beats on the sands. But you are away, among the strange delights, whereof the unquiet waves sing endlessly.
That is beautiful. Derek, do stay with us. But